I just want to make a quick video about embedding ideas through anchors, how it's used in NLP world, how it's used generally, and how you're constantly using it toward others, and how to be cautious about it. I don't know if you can notice this. I've actually had comments about my sweet office here. It's a green screen, by the way, not real. But aside from that, I'm not sure if you can tell. This shirt has been soaked 3 times with sweat today. Thank you to the beautiful Georgia heat. I might be crazy, but I feel like this is the hottest summer thus far. And if you're from Georgia, you know it's going to get a little bit hotter. So, unfortunately. With that being said, the AC in my vehicle decided to kick out while I was in the line at Chick-fil-A today. So, my luck is always beautiful. Anyhow, I want to make this quick video because it's an extremely important video. It applies to a lot of different aspects in life. I'll start off with a quick little question that's going to be applicable to 80 to 90% of people. So a quick question. Do you know what is on the back of this card? And the answer is no, which is what 80 to 90% of you said in your head. No, of course you don't know. It's a small little trick that I did not come up with, by the way. I saw that about 12 years ago from Darren Brown, he's a mentalist. He also practices NLP. Had a TV show, definitely worth a Google or a YouTube search. However, it's small, basic, it's petty, but it kind of gets the point through. People are predictable. With that being said, you can put what would you call it? You can put obstacles in the way of people's thought process, aka their subconscious thought process. And you can usually gauge based off of a few pieces of information from each individual person. You can kind of gauge what their answer is going to be. You can predict it. And I'm going to get to a very good example in a second. However, and I want to be specific about this, even the CIA has said many years, decades ago, the use of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, will not make someone do something that they wouldn't consciously do already. So even if you sweep under the conscious level, hit the sub/unconscious level, and suggest ideas per se, still a person will not do something that their conscious mind wouldn't allow them to do anyways. Their moral compass, if you will. So if you're interested in like the sales aspect of this, the ethical sales aspect, I want to reiterate ethical. I do have a book on Amazon. You can find it on my page or whatever. Nevertheless, this is not about that per se. So what I'm about to explain is the anchoring of thoughts or emotions, if you will, ideas per se. So we're going to embed ideas. We're going to put an idea or a thought into someone's head to have them act or suggest an idea in a specific way that we want. Now, this is you may listen to this and say, "Oh, that sounds like manipulation." No, it's a, well, I guess people could maybe define it that way, but it's a better tone. It's a toned down, more educated, better articulated way to communicate with other people. And I see this a lot, and I won't get into the conversation of arguments per se, but a lot of times in arguments, we argue with emotions and not with skill. So basically, sales, I say this, I've said this a million times for many years. Anybody that's had a close conversation with me knows, I always say, you're always selling yourself. It doesn't matter if you're to your friends, family, spouse, to your teacher, doesn't matter. You're always selling yourself and your idea at all times. So with that being said, what do salespeople need to do? What do people need to do in arguments? They need to get their idea across this barrier of a communication level and into that person's head and have them understand it easily. It's easy to say, I think you're wrong. You did this, that's bad. But why? And how are they going to understand this unless you embed that idea into their head? Easiest way possible the path of least resistance, if you will. But nevertheless, I'll get to how this works exactly. So this is going to be, so I'm going to use a magic trick. Now, I am not a magic person. I was a big fan of David Copperfield when I was a child. I'm that old that where it came up on the TV screen, you'll point and blah, blah, blah. Now, there's different ways to doing magic. And this is not a magic lesson. Once again, this is not. I'm just giving an example of how this works, how anchors are used in magic tricks. And then I'll explain how that's applicable to your every single day life. So, and this may be hard to preview through this green screen thing, but so if they're so if I have let's say I have 5 cards I picked from a deck of cards, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And I say, here, pick a card. But while I'm explaining the instruction to this person, and now let me back up a second. There's different ways to do magician tricks, blah, 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 you know, trick decks, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a magician, but I can tell you this way. I can tell you what the most professional way that people do it, the mentalist, if you will. These types of magicians refer to themselves as mentalists because they work on how to get around or go underneath that conscious barrier to implant an idea into your head. So where you think it's magic, but they put the idea in your head. So as I'm explaining the instructions to this card trick, I know in my head, I want them to pick 4. I want them to pick out of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want them to pick 4. That's it. That's the trick. Now it's a little risque, I guess, but if performed well or performed accurately, they're going to pick 4 every single time. So as I'm doing this, I'm gonna touch their shoulder. So, oh, hey, buddy, come here. Touch their shoulder. And every time I make contact with their body, I'm going to use ambiguous language, meaning ambiguous. So for FOUR, instead of using that spelling, I'm going to use the word FOR every time. So it's the same, but the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. It hears 4, puts 4 in the brain. 4, 4. So every time I touch their shoulder, I'm going to say, this is for a good cause. You're going to like this. Before you pick a card, I want you to think of this. There's not 4 cards, there's 5. And every time I'm making contact with this person, now there's 1,000 ways to do this. Well, maybe not 1,000, but there's a handful of ways to do this. I'm just giving like an example that I've used in the past. If you've listened to my videos on here before, the last few years, you've probably heard this example before. It's easy. So I'm constantly within about a 30 to 60 second time frame. I'm hitting them up every time. Every time I make a physical contact with their body, I'm using that ambiguous language of 4. So then I ask them immediately. So out of all these cards, pick one. Don't tell me, pick one. I close the cards back up, lay them out. I know which one 4 is. I pick it. 4. Is that your card? Yeah, that's crazy. It's not crazy because I just put that thought into your head multiple times. Now, is this 100% accurate? Of course not. Nothing is 100% accurate in the world. Nothing. I know people might challenge me on that one, but nothing is. Nothing's 100% accurate. There's always a margin of error. However, so how does this apply to me, Chris? Well, first, there's 2 ways to make anchors. There's 5. There's 1 for each sense of how to make anchors into people's brain. Smell is probably the best. You ever, and I give this example too. You ever smell a cologne, let's say like in your 20s, you wore the same cologne. I'm using my personal example, by the way. You use the same cologne to go out to bars. And mine was Armani Code, by the way. And let's say a couple of nights, you come back home, probably drank a little bit too much. You wake up the next morning, you smell the cologne. It's in your head with a hangover. It burns that emotion, that feeling, if you will. It burns it into your head and associates with that cologne. So now, 10 plus years later, every time I smell Armani Code, I get a headache because it creates that neurological, I always forget this word, a neurological process of this smell equals headache. And then I have a headache every single time. It's an anchor. It's a smell type anger. However, the primary three usually that's taught in like basic NLP courses, and it's the easiest just to explain to other people, is auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic, I know you know what visual means. I know you know what auditory means. Kinesthetic is the touch. So this is the example of this one, touch. It means pretty much feeling or how you're feeling. So how does this work in your real life? The biggest point, before I explain this, the biggest point I want to drive home is that when you become aware of how easy it is to make anchors and to have them put into your head, then you can step outside of this box called life, your normal square life, and everything's inside. And you can look and you can put it on a magnifying glass and you can say, oh, I see how maybe I said that, put the wrong image in someone's head. And even though I was saying things not to make them angry, they still got angry. I just don't understand. And this is why we butt heads all the time and we can't even hang out anymore. And you can dissect your language and you can change the way you say things and the tone in which you say them to other people to not anchor those type of emotions. For instance, a basic principle of argument. You and your spouse have an argument tomorrow about somebody didn't take the trash out. And blah, blah, blah. And it's a snowball effect, and you're starting to argue. And then one of the parties of this conversation brings up, well, I remember you sending all those weird pictures to that person like 3 years ago. Why? Why would you bring that up in this conversation? Why? Why would you bring this up in this argument? Now you just sparked anger. You just anchored anger in that other party. And now anything you say, whether it's polite or mean, it's not going to get through to that person. They shut the gates. You just cut yourself off from communicating. You screwed yourself by sparking those memories, by anchoring those memories. TV advertisements, the professionals work behind the screens, the tones, the McDonald's themes, Burger King, everybody. The tones, the pictures, the way the words, they embed commands through words. Oh, what's the poppin'? Come. Eat. And the tone, and it gets in your head every single time on an unconscious level. So, and I can tell you, I'm very conscious of these things now, but even me, like, I can scroll through social media and see an advertisement of a Burger King Whopper, and I'm like, that's the thing I'm going to do today. You know what? I am going to go do that. Even though I'm actually consciously aware of how they're trying to trigger my brain to go eat one, I'm like, fine, I accept. I'm going to do it. See, I shouldn't even say that because I haven't had a Whopper in a while. And now I'm contemplating turn this video off and going to do so. But conversation for another day. But anyhow, I guess the main point is, and I'm probably going to end this because I didn't want to be about 5 or 10 minutes, but once you're aware, and I would suggest that if you're interested in learning more, Google embedded commands or anchoring techniques, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Once you're aware and you study and you read about it, you're going to see it over time. You're going to see it everywhere. You're going to be a lot more cautious about the things you say. You're going to be aware. You're going to be aware of the things you hear and see. And it's going to allow you just to disassociate yourself from what is my normal thought processes? What is the normal way I conduct myself throughout the day? How do I send out and retrieve information? It's going to help you step outside that box and say, oh, okay. Now a lot more things make sense of why I do the way things the way I do, why I'm angry when this happens, why I'm sad, happy, mad, why I make other people angry, why I make other people happy. Once you understand this mathematical equation, you don't become the king or queen. You become a lot smarter about how you communicate with people and how the world works outside of your little bubble. I think that's it for now. I suppose I'm going to go stand over or next to an AC vent for about 30 minutes, or maybe a freezer. And then I'm going to think about Burger King Whoppers. Whether or not I make it there, I don't know. I will say in 2 days, today's Tuesday, I believe. Yes. In 2 days, we're going to do a podcast episode on the law of assumption, what the law of assumption is, how to use it correctly, what is the mechanics behind it. We generally try to have controversial topics, of course, and then topics in which we agree on and can elaborate deeper into why these are things. So anyhow, if you have any questions, I'm not really sure I'm posting this video yet, but if you have any, put them in the comment section or message me. I will comment back immediately. Let's see. I'm always horrible at turning these things off. Let's see what happens.